Hello, hello, my friends. It is Aldo, and welcome back to the Knights of the Nerd Republic. You know what to do, and stay profitable.
The Nerd Academy podcast is released weekly at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, available on our website at www.thenerdacademypodcast.com and wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You can also help support the show by going to patreon.com/The Nerd Academy podcast, where every donation allows us to bring you more exciting content every week.
Hello there. We are now in the end game. This is Knights of the Nerd Republic, the show where your favorite nerds talk all things about the galaxy far, far away. I am your host, Jarod the Dark Jedi, and joining me, as always, is the one-eyed knight and currently injured Conor Chiquita.
Hi, all. Yeah, real quick, I had hernia surgery last Monday, and I'm going through it, and it went well. I'm feeling okay, but, like, it's just a lot. So, but whatever. We have stuff to talk about with Star Wars because a lot of stuff is happening.
I want to make one thing clear. I told Connor, you can sit out whatever you want. If anytime you hear me talking about what I want to record this week, this does not mean you have to do anything. Connor wanted to do stuff. I am not forcing him here against his will.
Nope, he's not. Dark Timeline Jarod probably would.
Oh, yeah.
We don't talk about that.
Listen, folks.
Senko Tina.
We'll get to Paco's patron shout out at the end. But we are joined for the second time this week by the Tapestry Man himself. It is Alden Diaz.
It's the Tapestry
is up? I'm here. I'm rolling up the tapestry. I don't know if it's a big tome or if it's an actual scroll. I haven't decided yet. But it's good to be back.
Why not both? Why not one of each?
Why not both? I like that. Yeah, it could just be volumes 1 and 2. Yeah, it's good to be here. Tons to talk about here and all the timelines. It's going to be a good time.
Yes, it will be. And something that is also consistently good in every timeline is Sunday's Bloody Mary. You guys already know the drill. SundaysBloodyMary.com has the best Bloody Mary accoutrement on the galaxy.
And we're doing this on Sunday, too.
But yeah, we're just being recorded on a Sunday as well. The only reason I don't have one in my hand is I got to work in a few hours. The spicy season mix, my go-to, my absolute favorite. There's also the mild and vegan mix if you aren't a spice lord or if you don't like animal product. They have cool garnishes like their rim salt, pickled okra, pickled asparagus, and dilly beans, and merch like their cute little tomato hat and shot glasses. So go to sundaysbloodymary.com/shop. Use code TNAP, TNAP, at checkout. You get 10% off your order, and you help out your favorite nerds while you do it. Before we jump into all of the news, Alden, where can the people find what you do?
Yeah, well, you can find me on Ahach-To Radio, Star Wars podcast, AHCHTO Radio. That's all over every podcast platform, Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your shows. And that's my show. Tori Fox's show, The Mandatorian Creed, is seasonal, so she'll be back down the road. And then Nikki Kumar and I do a rewatch between worlds talking about Star Wars Rebels. We're also over on One and Done Film Club with our friend Reed Devaney. And Star Wars Celebration coming up, just days away. You can find me all over, hopefully buzzed both physically and with Star Wars excitement. And then on a panel Saturday morning. Our panel was scheduled for the same time as John and Dave's panel. So if you can't get into the John and Dave panel, come and hang out with us over the podcast stage.
Do that. Absolutely do that. I would even go so far as to say prioritize Alden's panel.
I'll get crazy now.
Oh, no, I will get crazy.
But it's true. It's going to be a good time.
It'll be Dark Timeline, Jarod. I will start screaming and slamming shit.
Oh, wow.
Listen, folks. Also, speaking of Star Wars Celebration, we here at the Nerd Academy are going to be live throughout the proceedings. I am going to be live during each day of the convention, watching the live stream, reacting to it in real time, giving, analysis, commentary, all of that stuff during Star Wars Celebration. And then each night we will be doing a live recap show of Knights of the Nerd Republic to keep you guys up to date. As well, we will have call-ins from all of our lovely friends who will be on the convention floor, like Alden, like the Bombad Boys, like the Skywalking Boys. Lots of folks are going to be stopping by, and I'm very excited for Celebration. This is going to be this is, again, like Scotty said, it's the calm before the storm. It feels like Tech Week. As a former theater guy, that's the place I'm in, of just, feeding off the energy. We've done all the preparation we possibly can do. If you're going to be there, if you're not going to be there, it's go time. Yep. And before it is going to be Wizard. And before Celebration kicks into gear, the gods smiled upon us and decided to give us a heaping helping of news. As you guys are aware, the big Vanity Fair pieces on the upcoming Star Wars Disney Plus projects and even some of the movies came out by the one and only Anthony Breznican. There's a lot to discuss. Yeah, heard of him. Yes, Connor, wait, Connor, pull it back up. I'm going to full screen you. Hold on. I got to get to the thing. There you go. Look at that. Look at that beaut. Look at that beaut. Cover. It is.
It really is.
It really is.
Just like as a quick note before we dive into like the content, this is one of our truly most precious Star Wars traditions, right? Is the Annie Leibovitz showing up to make everyone look sexy. Sometimes the shots are indicative of what you can expect in story, but sometimes, which is mostly for saga films, but sometimes it's just a costume sort of just like extravaganza. This time they had the volume to shoot on, so that was really cool. Normally like Annie Leibovitz goes to them, like for the episode 9 photos and things like that, goes to them on location and things like that, but this just looks, they all look just stunning.
They really do look incredible. First of all, I want to call attention to, I have to, talking about the photos. For those of you who are listening, you're kind of missing out on this part if you're not watching the YouTube version. Darth Vader. We finally have a full body shot of Vader for Obi-Wan. And, again, it requires an attention to really largely irrelevant minutia to call attention to the differences in Vader armor betwixt the movies.
But everyone in hardcore fandom has a favorite.
And
I don't, if I'm being honest. They all look as cool.
But there's not one that jumps out to you, Connor, even for reasons you can't explain.
Not really.
That's interesting to me, because even before I knew the differences, I knew that something was like, I knew that I liked Return of the Jedi Vader the most. He's the shiniest. There's like some stuff.
There might be one that pops out to me, and I just don't know it.
I like Revenge of the Sith, which is why I like the Obi-Wan one.
It's kind of in that ballpark, right? You explained it to me. Break it down again to remind me and the listeners.
Well, the main thing that changes is this chest plate. In A New Hope and Rogue One, it's basically half. It's like the middle section here, or basically this like middle third, and then the cloth tabards are either covering or just there, and it's just a little bit of armor here. In Sith, I believe this is the case for Sith. The armor goes all the way down to the shoulder, which is also the case in Empire, but it's a little bit more dramatic in Sith. So the thing that I like about this suit is that Vader's helmet is a little bit more of a matte black, like Rogue One and A New Hope. But we have like the armor plating-y look that is more indicative of the Revenge of the Sith suit, which would make sense. We're basically at the halfway point between those two stories. So, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
I just texted you both the quickest comparison I could find. Yeah, you're spot on. I mean, those it's all the changes are slight, but it is about the cloth over shoulder pauldrons, cloth under shoulder pauldrons. Obviously,
Yeah.
Rebels is very Macquarie, Rogue One.
And there's also one of the big ones is also the like cloth to leather ratio.
Mhm.
And this is another one that like the cloth to leather ratio looks more like A New Hope.
Right.
But
right, as opposed to Sith and Jedi, which are very leathery.
yeah, like this one, like it has the same. We're dedicating so much time to this very again minute thing, but that's what you get when you have a Vader stan as the host of a podcast. Like there's so like it has like the Vader from Sith of like the big armor, but for like A New Hope, like the cloth takes over from like around the panel and down, with like the leather being more of an accent than anything.
Right, and it has more of like a cape clasp thing rather than the chain.
Yeah, that's another thing is that it's no, he's not chained out. Other than that, the only other big costume details is Mon Mothma changed her outfit.
Looking great.
It's still in the same family and looks great. Genevieve O'Reilly looks incredible here. And we got the pre-Rebel Black Ops Cassian Andor.
Yeah, younger Cassian, got longer hair, more of a duster. I think that this is a really good look for him. Cassian's not the type of guy to be like really tricked out. Yes, he is a rebel, but he's not going to show up in Pathfinder armor with a helmet and everything like that. And with this sort of being how they got him involved, this is a really good look. It's a classic Star Wars underworld looking feel.
I agree. It's all cool. And then, Din and Ahsoka look as they've looked in their most recent appearances. But yeah, I don't think I'm going to read the article in its entirety. It's like a 40-minute read. So we're just going to kind of discuss and hop around to where it is relevant. I only say 40 minutes because whenever I was reading it earlier, the audio version says it's like 38 minutes long. And I know we'll get caught up. So Alden, I'm going to kick to you first, bud. Thoughts on the first article we got in the Wave O Vanity Fair?
The first thing I would express about the big piece, the rebellion will be televised. That was the big thing, which, by the way, superb title for an article. It's
incredible.
Really good.
Incredible.
It's catchy as hell. It's very good.
I saw this one weird bit of criticism where somebody was like, I can't believe they're taking revolutionary language to apply it to this corporate. And I'm like, you are so not fun. This is the most not fun reaction to the best Star Wars article title of all time.
It is. It's just a really, like, whoever, if it was Bresnikan, if it was an editor, whoever said that, like, that's a high five moment. Like, oh, that's so good. Like, it's just, it's awesome.
Reveal yourself to Alden and he will buy you a drink.
Yeah.
Courtesy of me.
Yes, exactly.
That's how
we'll get you some Sundays Bloody Mary. It's what I do. It's what I do as a radio man. My first reaction, though, was I have a very visceral combination of joy and elation and also frustration, because I woke up, this article was already out. It had been out for like an hour by the time I woke up, and already everyone had chosen the one bit that they were going to beat into the ground beyond a dead horse. They beat this horse all the way down into Hades. And meanwhile, there's so much gold in the article that no one was talking about at all.
Absolutely.
So that's what frustrated me. Yeah, like there's I pulled quotes here, and we can get. I don't know if you want to take it project by project, Jarod. I don't know how you really want to do it. I know that we have.
We can just run through the. I knew you pulled quotes, and that was something you were going to do. So I kind of plan on deferring to you. Sure.
So we'll get into the Han of it all. I feel like that'll be its own little nugget. The Han, Solo, Alden, that whole conversation. But outside of that, what I took from this was it feels like a taste of what a filmmaker panel will feel like. Maybe this is what it'll feel like at Celebration. I don't know, for that Thursday panel. But they just had everyone, even Gilroy, dropping knowledge. So I had some quotes here. I'll run through them really quick. Deborah Chow talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi. This is first up to bat, of course. This is days away as we're talking about it. And she says, for me, across the prequels through the original trilogy, there's a love story dynamic with these two that goes through the whole thing. It felt like it was quite hard to not include the person who left Kenobi in such anguish in the series. And she says, I don't know how you could not. I don't think he'll ever not care about him. What's special about that relationship is that they loved each other. So for her to take this to the broken love angle of their relationship, to the anguish, I mean, it makes sense, because there's those of us like me. I was one of these people that thought, I think Connor, you were too. New Hope was. I thought New Hope was the first time since Mustafar. I thought they hadn't seen each other.
They can't fight.
Yeah,
I was
that
on
changes
that
things.
train.
I was
like
too.
It was Thomas the Train, and I was a kid.
Yeah,
watching that show.
Until I started to think about it.
Yeah,
and then I was like, how do you get, and my question, I think I've said it on every show I've been on, how do you get from you were my brother, Anakin, I loved you, to the original trilogy where he says, yeah, he has to die.
He's more machine now than man.
If you are not willing to confront him, then the Emperor has already won.
Yeah, how do you get from I loved you to that? There's something. He has to have his own Twilight of the Apprentice moment where you maybe get a glimpse of the man, and then that flickering flame goes out. So I love that she was talking about that. That would be painful
as hell. Like if they just do that.
And I can't wait to cry. Come on.
Oh, it's exactly. I'm gonna be sitting there like early morning with this mug of coffee, like.
I'm just gonna be in shock. I'm just gonna be like, this is peak Star Wars.
Yeah, and what's great is that I'm excited for creatively the challenge, because we know Deborah Chow and Dave Filoni, obviously they met on Mandalorian, they've worked together. Now she's taking this one solo, but still deferring to Dave and John and Kathy and everybody involved on questions. The creative challenge is, I think that Twilight of the Apprentice took a lot of the cool beats, like already. Not that you couldn't do them in live action and they would still be impactful. Of course they would be. But like the cracked helmet, having Matt Lanter's voice and James Earl Jones's voice together. Like they did a lot of cool stuff over there. So it's like, how do you do it again, but different?
I think the big,
if they go that route,
and the heart of what makes this one different is that I think on some level Vader did not want and had no real desire to have to deal with Ahsoka.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When and not necessarily. I mean, this is definitely a part of it, but not just exclusively on a Anakin is conflicted about hurting her level, but also on a I don't have to kill every Jedi. I got
stuff to do.
There's bigger fish to fry than you.
Yeah.
Because it's personal for him once he has to handle it.
Right. Because when he became Vader and not Mustafar, I'm talking like the knighting of Vader.
Yep.
When the purge started,
the christening of Vader, which is just wonderful.
She had in canon, we now know, a day before they had hung out briefly on the ship, and he had given her sabers back, but she wasn't like part of the order anymore. So I don't feel like that's front of mind for him. I feel like Siege of Mandalore was like an unexpected crossing of the paths again. Yeah. But he said his goodbyes when she walked away from the temple. So when you get to Rebels and it's the apprentice lives, like that moment for him is like, oh, it was unexpected. Like, whereas Kenobi is like front of mind at all times.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan is the man who killed him. He ostensibly took him out. And we've actually had the confirmation of something that I have mixed opinions about going into this show that we'll talk about here in a minute. But I think that's the biggest difference. Here, this is a grudge match.
Mm-hmm.
This is, even if Obi-Wan isn't going into this wanting to hurt him, on some level, I think for Obi-Wan, there is a, you shattered everything.
Yeah.
And, later this week, you guys will see the episode Spencer and I made of the Versus series, trying to do our prediction cast for the fight between Obi-Wan and Vader. And I don't want to get too into it right now. But again, I think Obi-Wan's split feelings on this matter, juxtaposed with Vader's I'm going to kill you for what you did to me. You son of a bitch.
Mm-hmm.
Contrasts so hard with Ahsoka not knowing how to feel, still trying to convince herself that that's not Anakin. And Vader, Alden, as you said really well, of being, okay.
Yeah.
Wasn't expecting this, but let's go. So I think that's where it's going to differ. And I'm not hedging my bets on there until this interview with Deborah Chow and what she says here, that we would get a tender moment, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Like you said with the helmet correct, Ahsoka. I wasn't expecting something like that, but now I'm curious that we might.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see sort of where the emotionality is going to be at. And also, one thing that we as a fandom, the royal we haven't really discussed is do we think the show ends on this battle? Do we think it happens in the middle of the show and then the back half of the season is sort of getting away from him?
What I'm thinking is that, because I don't know what to say. Yeah, I'll say it. It's I'm not talking about any leaks or anything, because apparently the whole fucking show's leaked. Don't go on Star Wars leaks on Reddit if you don't want the entire freaking Kenobi show leaked for you. Just don't.
Allegedly leaked.
Yeah, allegedly. Just don't do it. Because it comes from someone not fun. Anyway.
We don't touch their shit anymore.
Yeah. My feeling is that because I feel like they're gonna probably fight twice. The first one's gonna be just real quick. Obi-Wan's just gonna be fuck, this man's back again, or some shit. I don't know, because he does, again, the thing Deborah talked about in one of her interviews with some editorial somewhere, was he doesn't know Anakin's alive.
Yeah, it's in here that she says that he's not aware.
Oh, okay.
And I honestly,
I feel the final episode is going to end, not not be the final frame, but the final episode is going to contain the fight, the rematch. So that's just my thought. But what were you saying, Jared?
No, I was super not into the idea that Obi-Wan wouldn't be aware. I feel I understand why people probably want to have that, that scene from the end of Dark Lord, The Rise of Darth Vader, where Obi-Wan sees, Vader's conquest on Kashyyyk on the HoloNet. I get why people want to see that happen in live action and him have the realization that Anakin's been alive. I think Obi-Wan being convinced he killed him for 10 years is a lot. That's a lot. Again, that's not to say they can't do it in a way that I dig it. But
the way that I could probably see it happening is kind of the way that Fallen Order does it with Vader, where Seer knows who Vader is, but she doesn't really know who Vader is. She doesn't know the name of him and everything. So that dark.
She's aware that there's a giant Terminator-esque beast of a man at the top of the food chain,
but she just doesn't know. She can't pick him out in a lineup. And so when he shows up at the end of Fallen Order, they're Seer says.
So are you proposing that Kenobi might know that there is a giant dark enforcer, but he hasn't, because he knows the name Vader, so he would have to just not know that. Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if Oh yeah, that's the other. Oh yeah, I forgot that he knows. I gotta rewatch Revenge of the Sith. God damn it! I'm probably gonna watch
That's
it
my
on
thing.
Wednesday.
I hope the revelation happens via flashback, quite frankly. They might be able to pull it off in a way that I'm into it, but just on its face, like, again, going back, Legends material, Dark Lord, The Rise of Darth Vader has an epilogue where Obi-Wan is in the Mos Eisley Cantina and he looks up on the HoloNet and he's, something, an enclave of Jedi traitors on the world of Kashyyyk, defeated by Darth Vader, blah, 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 blah. And, like, they use the name Darth Vader, and Obi-Wan, like, drops his drink, has a panic attack, and runs outside. And that's one of the first times Qui-Gon communicate, because he's freaking the fuck out because he thought he killed him.
Yeah, that'll be.
And it's only like a few weeks to a few months after Sith when Obi-Wan's like, oh, Anakin's out there still. Like, this is not a like we really need to keep these kids hidden.
Yeah,
that's just me though.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, because I was kind of like, okay, now I always forget that, like, he knows, like, the name and that Anakin is Vader, so he doesn't know, like, yeah, it's probably just, I would assume that he, hears these rumors of this, like, black monstrosity out in the galaxy. But I wouldn't be also, like, again, it's on Tatooine.
I would also love, though, I would love it if it's the Force that tells them through some way. Like, the thing that I've been obsessing over, like many people in fandom, is a Qui-Gon appearance in the show.
It's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen. But what I would love for it to be the purpose. The obvious answer is training. What Yoda told him. You have training to do to be able to cross over and retain your form.
Which I feel like we will see.
I wouldn't be surprised. My theory on that is at the end of this show, because we see Obi-Wan leaves planet. I think that when Obi-Wan comes back and rededicates himself to standing guard, it'll be like achievement unlocked. Like, your trial's over. Like, that's when Qui-Gon might appear. But I also love the idea of Qui-Gon Jinn's, promise me that you'll train the boy. That whole stuff might come to him in dreams, and it might be the voice of Qui-Gon that keeps echoing, like, the boy, until, like, Obi-Wan starts to really interpret that and be like, is he alive? Like, why am I having this compelling feeling of it not being over between him and I? Something like that could be really interesting.
It'll be really, really painful if the opening of Obi-Wan Kenobi is exactly like the opening of the episode 8 novelization, where it's like Kenobi, we see like this basically paradise dream for Kenobi. Where he's like, chilling with Anakin, chilling with Padme, they're having a great time, and then it just cuts to him just in that cave or wherever he's sleeping, and it's just dark, and he just looks like complete shit.
Really stupid theory real quick before we move back into the article and the quotes Alden pulled. I think the show ends with him having the hovel. I think he's living in that cave.
I think he's living in the cave too, and I do think that the end of this he'll get his hut. I think that by the end of this, I'm not saying they're gonna make him up to look more like Alec or cut his hair or make his hair gray or white. Like, I don't think they're gonna do an age flash forward or anything, but I do think by the end of this, he'll go from this, what are they calling it on the toys? Jedi wandering Jedi. I think he'll go from the wandering Jedi costume to the long dress robe that Alec Guinness wears.
Yeah.
And I don't mean dress robe formally. I mean dress as in it's a long dress.
It's long and flowing.
Yeah, it's long and flowing. I think that he'll don that in the last episode, and you'll see him maybe like getting the chest that he keeps Anakin's saber in, putting it inside, close. Like, I think he'll settle. I'm also curious, before we move into the article again, it's obviously much has been made of Owen roasting him, which is an awesome moment. I am curious what information Obi-Wan has made Owen and Beru privy to. Because we know in the comics he says you've killed enough Skywalkers.
Yeah, haven't you killed enough Skywalkers already, Kenobi?
And here he says, like you trained his father. But does Obi-Wan show up one night knock knock. Hey, is Luke asleep? I need to tell you, he's alive. Like, does he tell them or does he keep it from them? That's another
I think
big
they know
problematic
everything.
thing.
I think they know everything. I think
Yeah.
I think Oklahoma and El Peru know. I think he tells them the whole story. I think Obi-Wan, as much as there's that fun little element about Obi-Wan, very Doctor Who, where the Doctor, for all of his there at this point amazing qualities, is a liar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Same
and
kind of
Satine says
Kenobi.
it in Voyage of Temptation,
Half-truths and hyperbole.
Man known as Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Half-truths and hyperbole known as Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan's like, yeah, I mean, he is, because again, it has to go from, they have a journey too of there's kindness and warmth when he delivers the baby to them. And they seem so grateful, and they have this moment of accepting their new role as surrogate parents. When did the bitterness between them start? When did the
right after Obi-Wan, for one of the few times in his life, told the whole truth to somebody?
Yeah, I mean, because it's not like Owen and Anakin were like these close stepbrothers, but enough that they were bonded by Shmi, and enough that he cared, and was happy to meet them, and he remembers the funeral and everything. I also think we're going to get the Shmi gravesite, because that's something from a certain point of view that Obi-Wan leaves little toys for Luke at Shmi's grave for him to find. That way Owen doesn't realize. Beru knows, but that way Owen doesn't realize he's gifting him things. I think that him at her grave just being like, I'm sorry that I failed your son, that'll be the Emmy Award-winning cry moment. That's when I will evaporate.
Let's say that's how things pan out. The sentence Ewan McGregor won an Emmy for his performance as Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I want that timeline. I want to live there.
That's wild. Anyway, back into the article, because we're getting excited to talk about
it.
Understandably so.
For sure. And I'm going to move us in the order that we're going to get these projects. There's a little Ahsoka quote, but there's not much Ahsoka because they're just shooting, and Bresnikan even says multiple times that the plot for that is under wraps. So not much there.
For now.
But Andor, yeah. Andor is the next thing. We have two quotes here. The first is Diego Luna talking about, they finally get into what Andor is, because they keep throwing around genre terms for the past few years that we've known about it, like spy thriller, noir, like espionage. But now Diego Luna says it's the journey of a migrant. That feeling of having to move is behind the story, profoundly and very strong, that shapes you as a person. It defines you in many ways and what you're willing to do. And then you move over to Gilroy, and this brings me so much joy because Tony Gilroy is not a Star Wars fan. He doesn't really like it.
No, he doesn't give a shit about Star Wars.
He came on to Rogue One as a job because he's a professional, and it was a job. And he said famously, like, they were in such a bad place when I came onto the project, and I had to fix this and this and this and this. But he approaches it like a storyteller, and he found the meat. And what he says here is,
it's beautiful.
Well, it says Gilroy breathes deep and reveals a little more. This guy gave his life for the galaxy, right? I mean, he consciously, soberly, without vanity or recognition, sacrificed himself. Who does that? That's what this first season is about. It's about him being really revolution averse and cynical and lost and kind of a mess. The story begins with the destruction of Andor's birth world, very interesting, and follows him into it, which means Clone Wars, I'm assuming, because they're separatists. So we'll probably see some B1s and B2s wrecking his planet. And follows him into adulthood when he realizes he can't run forever. His adopted home will become the base of our whole first season, and we'll watch that place become radicalized. Then we see another planet that's completely taken apart in a colonial kind of way. The Empire's expanding rapidly. They're wiping out anyone who's in their way. By journey's end, Andor's path will be to block theirs. That is thrilling. Everything about that is thrilling. I mean, first of all,
I'm ready for some build Star Wars content, baby.
Hey, that's what it feels like. So, like, all three phases of that. So, like,
space,
Andor's homeworld being destroyed. Probably going to be Clone Wars. Is that going to be Jedi versus battle droids and Andor's parents dying in the crossfire? Like, you're starting a tragedy. And then a planet that's colonized and Andor's planet being the radicals, like I am so ready for them to just be like, if you were confused about where this franchise sat on the spectrum, here you go.
Don't
Be
worry.
confused
There's
no
gonna be bad
more.
enough takes to make up for it, Alden.
Andor's
you
gonna
worry,
be
hon.
With no doubt.
the same thing with me as was with Kenobi for me, where like the concept of it, I'm like, yeah, this sounds pretty cool, but like once we get actual footage of it and once we hear more from like the directors, the writers, the people who worked on it, it just gets me more and more hyped. But then again, I think Kenobi helps because it's being marketed as if it was a film.
Yeah.
So
I think the thing that really excites me in Andor, aside from Space Antifa, is this is a very specific itch I wanted that I was excited to get scratched by the Bad Batch that I did here and there, which is the early Imperial stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the Imperial transition. Now, granted, you know, I think we're well past the point of the Empire being established.
Yeah.
But, you know, again, getting to experience like the fight against the Galactic Empire. Like that's the kind of stuff. Like not on a big grand, you know, Battle of Yavin way. But, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it plays like this is the, like you said, we touched on it with Bad Batch. When you see everyone needing to register and get chain codes, when you see stuff in Solo of the checkpoints that you can't leave the planets without sufficient payment, without certain things, like all of that, I think, has been leading up to a show that squarely focuses on it, which is why it's exciting that Mothma will be there. It's exciting that, well, we don't know, but we know that Saw Gerrera will be there. There's a lot, I think, to be said. It's important, I think, that Diego Luna, you know, a Latin actor, a Mexican actor, is able to play this role, to be able to executive produce this part, to have people really come in and take this one, not like, oh, it's so different, like it's still gonna be Star Wars, but I really don't like using the term Mandoverse, but I'm going to just as a catch-all. That stuff, like the volume, the expanding story, this is over here, and it's going to be 12 episodes. It's going to be about something really different, and it's going to be, they've made it without the volume, all on these practical locations, and it just feels like it's
in Pinewood.
Yeah, it just feels like it's gearing up to be something like kind of old school, but also very modern.
It really excites me that they're doing it in Pinewood because, like, we'll get into the stuff with the TV shows, but like, I can definitely
historic.
Feel that there's like a sort. You can definitely feel like that, like when it comes to them using the volume versus when it comes to them using like Pinewood, you can just tell there's a sort of shift in the production quality. And I don't want to like shit on anything, but like I obviously think like I think the production quality for the shows so far are pretty solid, but they're just missing that little.
It gets better and better and better, but there's something about like I think that the volume in Mandalorian season 1 was a wonderful breakthrough, and then from 2 to Boba Fett, like the way that Mos Espa looks, like they really knocked it out of the park.
Yeah,
but you still like, there's a certain magic to like the first one I think of in Pinewood is JJ, Adam, and Daisy in the forest set of Starkiller Base, and like all of that. Like it's just, there's something about doing it that way, or going out to the deserts and stuff. So there's always going to be a place for that. I'm glad that they're expanding that into the shows, see how this works, doing a 12 episode format. Everything they said, like Jared said, pilled Star Wars, Space Antifa.
Yeah, like Luna, really, like Diego Luna's It's the Journey of a Migrant. Like,
yeah, it's awesome. Amazing. And the radicalization element of from separatist who were the bad guys. Like this show is, and we talked about it, Jared, in our Brotherhood review. We talked about it in terms of like the Padme arc and in terms of some of those characters, which you should read Brotherhood and watch that review. Roog and Kitar. Padme's line of, you ever get the feeling we're on the wrong side? That's Cassian's family. And now that's going to permeate into the good guys. So it's really something for those of us that latch on to that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Alden, gonna keep trucking along on your side.
Yeah. So then we move on to Acolyte, which is going to shoot at the end of this year or end of summer for a next year release. Probably after Ahsoka, it'll release. The Acolyte, Headland says, takes place roughly 100 years before the Phantom Menace. Quick note on that. A lot of the fandom had, and I don't blame the fandom, but we were working with the information we had. When they announced Acolyte, they said it would be at the end of the High Republic era. The end of the High Republic era is 50 years before Phantom Menace. That's the year that Dooku's mom died. That's already like brushing up against prequel era. Or
there
Phantom
are
Menace
characters
era.
we know who are alive and established.
Yeah,
at the end of
Dooku's
the
there,
High Republic.
Yoda's there, Mace, Qui-Gon as a kid. Like that's sort of there. They have now saying 100 years. It's like heading toward the end, but we're kicking it back an extra 50, which I like, makes it more firmly in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She says a lot of those characters haven't even been born yet. We're taking a look at the political and personal and spiritual things that came up in a time period we don't know much about. My question when watching The Phantom Menace was always like, well, how did things get to this point? How did we get to a point where a Sith Lord can infiltrate the Senate and none of the Jedi pick up on it? Like, what went wrong? What are the scenarios that led us to this moment? She goes on to say, we use the term Renaissance or Age of Enlightenment. The Jedi were not always monk-like figures living selflessly and bravely. The Jedi uniforms, this is a quote, the Jedi uniforms are gold and white, and it's almost like they'd never get dirty. They would never be out and about. So this is exciting. I mean, for fans of High Republic, it's the gold and white uniforms confirmed, like the idea of really that Renaissance-y period, but also hubris. Like,
Yeah.
the books are about 230 years before Skywalker's. So this is a ways away from both. This is in the middle of where the books are and where Skywalker Saga starts. So it's not going to have your Elzars and Avars and all them. Might have your Briagas. It'll still have Yoda and Oppo and them, but your human characters are kaput. You know, long-lived aliens, sure. But this
makes me wonder where Phase 3 is going to end up now.
Yeah, I mean, this is High Republic sort of like,
or if they're just going to be like, oh yeah, we're getting
also,
a Phase 4.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is classic Star Wars in the sense that I think that this is where we'll see the characters start to forget the lessons of the High Republic.
Yeah,
that's
a good point.
Call attention to the fact that Ms. Headland's thing begins with calling attention to how a Sith infiltrates the Galactic Republic, and I really, 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 really hope my assumption, and the assumption I know a lot of people have, that this is going to be our dark side show.
Yeah.
That's
what I'm assuming the Acolyte is, right? Like,
the logo and just the name of it, just the vague description of it.
Our first canonical look at what the Sith are doing during the era of the Rule of Two.
Yeah.
Pre-Palpatine.
Yeah, like this is like, I'm not saying like YouTube thumbnail Plagueis, but like, is it someone?
It could be.
Could be him as a child.
It'd be really freaking
right
funny if we did see
him.
the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise.
Well, I don't think we'll see the tragedy because years. But
anyway,
it's just like the idea of the Jedi having had this brush with the Nile, and then being like, "Well, Nile problem's taken care of. Anyway, we're great." Like realizing that they didn't pick up the right lessons, and that seeing already the
or the people that did pick up the right lessons
are dead.
Died in the process.
Are dead.
Yeah.
They didn't live long enough, and no one heeded their warnings, Elzar, etc. And it's like, there's such a rich ground to create a piece that by the time, because part of the charm of Phantom Menace is that it's the Emperor, unless you're a small child, but like most of us watching that, it's like it's the Emperor. This is how he got in, but it's like, where does the clouding start? This could explore things like Mace Windu saying our ability to use the Force has been diminished. Like, where does what trickery, what sorcery, what political machinations? Like, this is really exciting. And I don't need it to be, me personally, I don't need it to be like a let's set up Phantom Menace,
Yeah.
but it doesn't need to be a Skywalker Saga prequel. But I am really excited to like watching the Acolyte to be like, oh, so that's why the Supreme Chancellor position like is this. Things like that.
Yeah. I mean, it could lay the groundwork as well for like how, even though we know, like they talk about there being all of the amendments to the Constitution and all of that stuff, like you can very much get into the territory of like, how is it that easy that they were able to just amendment during the Clone War? Like, there's a lot of like weird, hyper specific Star Wars politics we can get into with the Acolyte, and oh boy, howdy, am I excited!
And we know all that stuff with the whole like amendment stuff happens like before or like at the time of Phantom Menace.
Yeah, all kinds of weird political shit is happening, and then the Clone Wars starts, and Palpatine's outlasting his term by how many years? So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Alden, next up.
Yeah, so the last thing I wanted to focus on was some of this Kathy stuff, and that can segue, I guess, into the solo of it all. So she had said, talking about the Producers Guild Award, and she was like seeing Spielberg and George and reminiscing on old times. She says, what I was so taken with is how much fun we were having. It amounted to this moment of realization. I do think a little bit of fun has gone out of making these gigantic movies. The business, the stakes, everything that's been so infused in the last 10 years or so. There's a kind of spontaneity and good time that we have to be careful to preserve. I keep holding on to, it better be fun.
I like that quote at the end of it. That was one.
I do too.
Yeah, which I like that somebody who is arguably the greatest producer to ever do it. Her resume
I don't think you'd be far off to say that.
Yeah, I mean, her resume is ungodly. Her, like, who's up there? Her, Frank Marshall, who is her husband, Jerry Bruckheimer.
Yep.
Fahey can start to make that claim. I mean, he's at 28 of these movies already, and so it's like her resume is unparalleled. But for her and her older age and like already a couple contract extensions in, because people keep forgetting that, is that she's had like 2 or 3 chances to walk at this point and name a successor, but she keeps renewing because she likes this. Is to have that.
I don't know why, I don't know how, but
yeah. I would have been like, peace. But the whole idea of it has to be fun. I love that she's in her sort of like, I've done everything there is to do. I'm going to enjoy this now, like phase of her career.
I think she's earned that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was really exciting. But then, of course, like everyone made a whole stink about what I think got so blown out of proportion and was later clarified more with the full quote in the second article. So, Jared, why don't you recap? Tell us how we got here.
So, in the main article, the rebellion will be televised. I'm trying to find it in the main article now, where they talk about the lesson of you can't recast these legendary characters, and it basically being interpreted by a lot of people that Kathleen Kennedy was throwing Alden Ehrenreich's Han Solo under the bus, throwing Solo under the bus, saying that, kind of making it seem like there was a wrong lessons learned type thing going on. And I think a fandom that is kind of primed, especially post Rise of Skywalker, that regardless of one's opinions on it, I think has the whole aggressive nostalgia gone too far critique attached to it, and how I don't necessarily think this is true, but I think that it is hard to argue that there aren't certain optics to The Last Jedi comes out, the fandom loses its fucking mind for like 3 years straight, keeps losing its mind. The Rise of Skywalker feels and is presented by a lot of people, in bad faith or not, to be the, refutation of The Last Jedi. And then Mando is the cameo marathon, and Book of Boba Fett, all continues to have deep fake Luke Skywalker, where it kind of keeps playing into this narrative of Star Wars tried something new, got scared, and is now nostalgia all the time.
You know what story didn't do that? That also released in 2019? Fallen Order. If you haven't experienced it yet, I feel sorry for you.
Conor, throwback to Conor making something randomly about Fallen Order. That hasn't happened in a while. So yeah, there was a whole lot of narrative building, and regardless of how much of that you may or may not agree with, even like the reputable nerd news trades were running this story as Kathleen Kennedy blames Solo for ...
Yeah. Right. And so like that starts, and it's immediately my takeaway was, well, I want to, she didn't say that, which was my first takeaway was, first of all, that was never said. There's some editorializing, there's some ambiguity about what she was talking about. And then the full quote comes out, and the context of the quote, I have never seen so many maybes and ums in a quote, because she's so clearly thinking out loud. Like, there's nothing definitive about what she says.
Up to and including the fact that the question
leads,
going into this.
Yeah, the question leads with, I don't want to put you in an awkward spot. So the premise is already acknowledging that this is awkward.
Yeah,
which is going to put an interview subject like not at ease. If you lead, if I have $1 billion brand on my hands and you lead with that, I'm going to be like, what? Like, and then it says, and I'm not trying to trash Alden. So that also puts her in more of an awkward spot. So like,
I feel like Star Wars Twitter needs to just make needs to make that their Twitter header. I'm not trying to trash Alden.
I'm not trying to trash. Please do.
A lot of trouble.
I think that, and this is no disrespect to Bresnikan. I've met the man, took a photo with him. I think he's a great writer. I think he's one of the best we have. I think that this is his shoddiest piece, in the sense of like, it feels like a little loose and like shooting from the hip a little bit in like a way that's not as clear and definitive as he normally is. Now, when you read her piece, it's also important to note that the context of her opinion, of her thinking out loud, she says, maybe, Anthony, maybe, I don't know. I mean, that could be the lesson that we would take. Mind you, I just worked with Harrison on Indy 5, and she puts it in the context, like, she started with Lucas on Indy. The most recent thing she made is Indy. Indy 5 just wrapped. So her brain is in the, I'm nostalgic for when I started. I just worked with him again. She even says, maybe my DNA is more in Indy. So I'm thinking of it that way. Like, this is a woman who intimately knows the creator and the original star, Harrison, who was there, who got her start there and is now in charge of it, ruminating and thinking out loud. She doesn't say anything about Alden and Donald. And so, like, yeah, like, could you take out of this quote that maybe she doesn't want to do recasting anymore? Sure. But it's not because of Solo. There is no lesson learned from Solo, which was that discussing film spin on it. The lesson that they learned from Solo is this. No, it's not. It has nothing to do with Solo. It has to do with the fact that she just worked with Harrison. She just worked with Mark months prior on Book of Boba. And it's that feeling of like, wow, well, we can still do this. Like, let's do it. When she names a successor and retires, that person could have an entirely different opinion, one. So when people say Lucasfilm's never going to do it, that's not true. We don't know that. The next head of Lucasfilm could be Michelle Rejwan, who's 25 years younger than Kathy and might have an entirely different opinion. Michelle, if you're watching, hi, how are you? And then the other aspect of that is Kathy like is allowed to just kick things around. Like it takes time and a lot of thinking to make a decision. If you're asking her to think out loud, if you talk to Ryan while he was writing Last Jedi, which I think a lot of our friend group would say is the best script out of the new movies, just as a piece of writing. If we asked him about it while he was writing it, I'm sure he would say things that sound weird and unsure, because it's like, we make content. If I asked you a question like hey, Jared, not to make you feel like a piece of shit, but when you're doing this Nerd Academy thing, like, what do you think about this? Like, you might be like, well, I didn't think about it. Maybe this. Like, it's a weird framing for everything. And the last thing I'll say on it is that if you actually think, and this is just to fans, if you actually think that this quote means that, I simply present to you the Lando show. You are high out of your mind if you think Donald Glover won't have anything to do with that show. He was just asked about it on Kimmel, and he played very coy and did that dodgy answer and was like, "Oh, you're asking me about all my shit now?" Like, ha ha ha. Like, so, come on. Like,
Childish Landino lives.
Yeah, and as long as that's true, it's going to be case by case. Luke is Luke the way he is because Mark wants to play. Mark has fun doing it. If you really think that Harrison is going to show up and do what Mark does, you're crazy. That's not going to happen. So
Never, ever. And I think that so much of the discourse around Star Wars, I hate saying this out loud, but on some level, the fandom menace won. With the way that the zeitgeist has been dominated by weird, misinformation-laden opinions. Like opinion pieces that get treated like a fact. Mm-hmm. And I think that the current body politic of the Star Wars fandom is such that even people who I want to phrase this carefully. People who are fans, but I would not say are a part of the Star Wars fandom, like people who are like psychotic weirdos like us, people like Alden and I who have like the iconography of Star Wars permanently etched into our fucking skin and shit like that. But people who go, ooh, new Boba Fett show, click. Or even critics who go, ooh, new Boba Fett show, click. But they don't eat, breathe, live in shit Star Wars like a normal person. Like, I call attention to a lot of the critical reception of the Book of Boba Fett. A lot of that was dominated by the unwillingness to let go of some stuff and how it still finds a way to be incredibly original trilogy and Luke based, even though it's a Book of Boba Fett show. And all of that discourse exists in all of the episodes we did about the Book of Boba Fett. But the point remains that there's a cloud hanging over Star Wars, which is, Kathleen alludes to it throughout so many of these quotes come back to Star Wars is a weird balancing act. We're telling one big ass story. And
I think her new thing is persistent storytelling rather than, she even says I don't even think about it in trilogies anymore.
Yeah. I think it's such a great term, persistent storytelling. And Bresnikan even brings up, if a Batman movie shits the bed at WB, they could just pull the plug and have a new Batman tomorrow. And I think he picks a really interesting example with WB, seeing as how we don't know what the hell WB looks like at all with regards to their DC stuff, but that's beside the point.
No. He's right. He doesn't have that luxury.
Yeah. You have to just keep moving. And
nor does she have the luxury, they note of, let me just go over to the shelf and maybe we'll try we'll adapt Star Wars Volume 8 this time. No, there is no source material. It's screen first and then it moves out.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. It's all off the top of their heads. It's all
even if they did adapt, you get into the problem of adaptations and knowing this fandom, it wouldn't go over well.
I mean, we saw what happened when they made minor changes to Kanan and the Planet Caller and that whole business in Bad Batch.
Don't remind me, Alden.
As we all know, you guys were very upset about the Depa Saber color.
I don't even care about the color. It's just
Alden's bringing it back to the Brotherhood review again. How this came up,
Yeah,
but like
we did. We just talked about that.
but there, and I'll make the same joke I made then, as the great poet Kendrick Lamar once said. There's levels to it, baby. You and I know. Be humble, but there's a lot going on here, and I think that I agree with you, Alden. Again, I have nothing but respect for Anthony Bresnick, and I do think he is one of, if not the best, like entertainment writers around right now.
I do appreciate this. The veil of secrecy has been lifted, which is something I kind of always felt was like lacking in most Star Wars, except for the High Republic. High Republic's marketing just incredible. But again,
yeah, but they're not afraid to fucking spoil a book, though. Like, and I hate to write off the High Republic that way.
Oh,
Connor, did you kick him off? Did you kick him off his own show?
No, I was trying to click on another article and I didn't realize where my cursor was.
And then Alden said
actually
that
looking.
This is a whole new thing.
Yeah,
like that's.
But
the
yeah,
thing that
but
I
it's
forgot about.
but I think it's true with Jarod too. Like they're not. They do think of it differently, whether that's valid or not. But I think that to Connor's point, it was cool to have an article that was a group sort of celebration. I guess pun intended. They all came together. They all contributed. But then there was even like, let's be clear. Lucasfilm okays everything that gets run. They see a copy of this. They okay all of it. So it was nice to see like at the end, like, oh, and John Watts' show is real. That's not just something you've been hearing about.
Yeah.
Like, that is coming, and it's codenamed Grammar Rodeo. And here, by the way, here's when it takes place. Like Lucasfilm was comfortable saying that it's after Return of the Jedi, when the rumors had been High Republic. So like that clarified that. And there's just like, oh, Ahsoka just started filming, and we're doing this, and
confirmation about Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead. That was a great moment with him being like, I hope our kid's not a Star Trek fan. Like he's got two parents in Star Wars. Like. That's Ewan McGregor just sounding like Shrek in my head.
That's the sort of transparency I really like, and like you said, Alden. I won't say anything about it, but like how the social media team, at least on Twitter, I don't know about anywhere else. They've been more active. They've been more. Yeah.
It's a looser time, and I think that the sequel trilogy was the most high pressure thing to ever happen in movies since the prequel trilogy. In movies, not just
you're right.
Like they had to sort of be like, oh god, like this is 7, 8, 9. This is the thing people have been talking about since 1983. Like, will we ever find out what's next? Sure, go back, but what's next? So now it's like we're after that. We've got some shows that have been, even if Book of Boba Fett was a little bit controversial, I would still say that they've had seasons of nonstop hits with Clone Wars Season 7, Mando 1 and 2, Book of Boba Fett, Bad Batch 1. Like, people loved Resistance, even though it was very underrated and underwatched. People that watched it loved it. So, like, they've been rolling for a bit here, and they're enjoying that now. And that's Kathy's thing about it being fun. Like, to be able to say, hey, what's going on with movies? Another thing she says in the article. What's going on with movies? Well, Patty Jenkins and Rogue One, that needs more time.
Rogue Squadron.
Oh, yeah, Rogue Squadron. That's going to be further down the road. And then the Ryan stuff, he's so busy. And then she kind of says, like, yeah, so the Taika thing will probably be next. Like, just casually says it, which is, which makes sense. Like,
which, like, in any other universe, like, she would have definitely, like, if Taika's film was, like, right after Rise, would have been a huge deal. But, like, now it's just like, I appreciate, I really like how they're just kind of, like, looser, like you said. It's just like they kind of remind me, like, just to have fun in this fandom and not get caught up with everything.
You're right. Again, I think this is incredibly insightful, and there were all the fun interviews. There was also there's just so much here, man.
Also, the one really good quote I want to point out real quick is when they were talking about, like, the whole, like, including legacy characters and ships in new shows or just going all new. Like, how do we, do that balance? And The lovely Michelle Rejwan says, but at the end of the day, we need to keep it pure about why. And I'm like, yes.
Star
She
Wars
gets
is
it.
not about how, it's about why. That's what the boys at Force Center always say, Ken and Joseph and Jennifer now, who's back on the show. Like, it is about why. It has to be.
You know what's really funny, Alden? I forgot that was a Force Center quote, and I remember you saying it, and I've repeated that quote and attributed it to you like 5 times in the last month.
Yeah, I might have forgotten to credit them.
No, I know you saying it again now. I'm like, oh, he did say that was Force Center. Now I can't remember if I've been crediting you or them. Who knows? I'm a thief. I take after George Lucas. I just steal shit that looks cool. But yeah, really cool stuff from Vanity Fair. And again, celebration is upon us. And I hope for those of you who will not be in attendance, and for those of you who are trying to keep up with the news, that this is where you land to try to do that. I would be honored if you would join us. As I like to. What'd you say?
With one eye and no hernia.
Yes. That.
I'm walking wounded, baby.
One eye and no hernia is going to be your next TNAP shirt.
Yep. One eye, no hernia.
It adds so much to the lore.
Connor just walks in like, all right, guys, listen. I came here to analyze content with one eye and no hernia, and I'm all out of having one eye and a hernia. A clunkier version, but it works.
Speaking of analyzing content, Kathleen Kennedy Q&A.
Yes, yeah. I mean, we kind of touched on the big part with that in clarifying the annoyance. I will say I did find this segment interesting. That the story we're doing is about Lucasfilm's Star Wars TV universe. But I remember at the last celebration held in Chicago in 2019, you announced that there would be a bit of a hiatus coming for the films. Kathleen Kennedy, yes, which is ironic, right?
Yeah, strange.
Yeah. Well, I think that's another interesting thing with Lucasfilm moving forward is that they have to find. I want to know how hard in the paint we're going with new Star Wars movies.
Yeah,
once they come back,
and like this is probably the best part. This is probably my favorite part of the entire Q&A. I'll just read it straight from the article. The question is, how important is it to get outside the gravity of the Skywalker saga, moving beyond the characters we know? How vital is it to open up these new realms? And Kathleen goes, I think it is vital. Just staying within the construct of George's storytelling to keep chipping away at that, I think would be wrong. It's our job to step away now, but still have a connection to the mythology that George created, albeit Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, everything that we're getting post Return of the Jedi. That won't stop. But we are moving on from the Skywalker saga. That's what's taken a lot of time, discussion, and thought right now, is publishing the test kitchen for some of these new eras. It is. That's something we've put into motion about 5 years ago because we don't have the benefit of just pulling off a book from the shelf, which like you kind of do, but also I get what she's saying because like Star Wars is screen first. It's not book first.
Yeah.
And
It's all really interesting. I do think it's funny though, whenever Kathleen or anyone from Lucasfilm says we're moving on from the Skywalker saga, because it's like you only are in name. Like Obi-Wan Kenobi, the show we're about to see, is part of the Skywalker saga. Bad Batch takes place in the middle of the Skywalker saga. Yeah, like it only is in terms of episodic films. That's the only reason. That's what they mean. But if out of nowhere, if Kenobi is the smash hit that we really think it's going to be, and then they decide to do 6 episodes of Vader during the Purge, like that is Skywalker saga. So
I hope they never do that, because you'll just need to read the 2017 Vader run by Charles Soule, which does it way better.
You don't know that.
Well, we
I
don't
know
when
that,
it would
Jared.
be. We don't know when it would be. 2017 Charles Soule Vader run is just like the first couple of years, if that first year.
It's still
There's plenty of time. There's plenty of time. Listen, I've said it once and I will say it again. The only context in which I want to see Sam Jackson come back as Mace Windu is for Darth Vader to fucking kill him.
and
I
with the
say
whole,
that as a fan of both characters.
and with the whole yeah, we didn't go far enough. We need to be more militarized.
Yes.
Like that's the angle I really like from you, Jared.
Like black pilled Mace Windu.
Yeah.
Where like he goes into it like more militarized, like Saw Gerrera, but a Jedi. If you can even call that a Jedi anymore, which would also be cool. There's a lot of really cool character stuff you can mine from bringing Windu back to be Darth Vader's rival at one point in time. But I digress.
Yeah. I think
the
thing I really liked was the whole using publishing as a sort of test kitchen for it. Because like we see it with the High Republic and we're seeing it with other stories throughout publishing.
Well, I really that excites me for one reason, especially, and that is with the current movies we know about. Me as a fan, I feel a little hungry because we have Rogue Squadron, cool, but no Force stuff, or at least they're not leading with Force stuff.
Yeah.
Grammar Rodeo, coming of age film post Return of the Jedi. I don't know what that means. Could be Force stuff. Probably won't directly be Force stuff.
People have been speculating it's about Luke's Jedi Temple.
Possibly. I'd love that. We don't know shit about Taika.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like there's this dearth of like we are going to loudly say this is a story about the Jedi or this is a story about the Force, and like the Acolyte almost certainly will be, Obi-Wan Kenobi will be, but outside of that, all of the stuff we have going on right now does not exactly link right back to Jedi and Force stuff.
Yeah. The only 3 stories we know are Kenobi, Acolyte, and Jedi Survivor.
And Ahsoka, but even then, like I feel like it's going to be more you have a Jedi type character in the lead of a Rebel story. So we'll see. I'm excited. I'm very excited. With that said, Alden, again, where can our lovely people find you, all that you do, and how they can come bother you at Celebration?
Yeah, you can find me everywhere at that Alden Diaz, Twitter, Instagram, ThatAldenDiaz, talking about all things that I enjoy, Star Wars, wrestling, Dua Lipa, all that jazz. And then you can find me at Star Wars Celebration Saturday morning at 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. First panel on the podcast stage that day with Triad of the Force. We're going to be talking about Latinx representation in Star Wars, which is going to be a wonderful time. Thanks to Goose from Triad for inviting me on for that. Awesome collaboration. It's going to be a great time. I'll be at the Mosh Isley party that Saturday night with the Thank the Maker pod, the Black Series Rebels boys. Lots of folks are going to be there. Jerry from Bombad's going to be there. Goose from Triad will be there. That's probably where you'll see people like Matt Martin hanging out, just based on who knows who and who likes what. So that'll be a really fun time. And then, to Ahach-To Radio, talking Star Wars. There's a new episode coming out the same time that we're releasing this. So, like, if you're watching this, jump over to the new episode of Ahach-To Radio with That Gay Jedi, Chase Hauser from his channel, and Big Milk being on.
Excellent. Yeah. And I don't know when everything's going to be officially announced, but I'm just gonna be very subtle and say, keep your eyes on Pink Milk for a face you're all familiar with. Ding. For audio listeners, I winked while I said ding. Because I don't have the time to go in and edit in a little ding for this to render for 5 hours for one bit. Even I have a little bit of restraint in that way. Alden is one of my favorite people in this space. I am so proud knowing about the Latinx representation panel, and I sincerely hope that gets released as its own episode so that I can check it out whenever I'm done doing everything I'm doing during Celebration. I hope I get a chance to watch the replay of every content creator panel that happens. Connor, where can the people find you, sir?
Twitter at @TeppaBanana, where I simp over a lot of women.
Yeah,
That's it. That's all he does.
I talk about Star
Connor's
Wars.
just like women, Star Wars, and women.
Mila Jovovich, if you're watching, destroy me. So yeah, I talk about Star Wars on there wherever. Again, it's Deppa Banana. You can find me here talking about Star Wars with Jarod and whoever else from the Nerd Academy and from just the fandom in general. We have a lot of really neat people come on here. Probably hopefully going to have some more really neat people come on here in the coming months or so. You can also find me as a co-host on For the Republic, a love letter to Star Wars animation. There, I co-host with 3 amazing friends, Jake, Donovan, and Andrew, and we just talk Star Wars animation. We're going through Clone Wars right now. We will do Kenobi not recap episodes. I know Alden hates that word. Kenobi review episodes. And so we'll be talking about that show, but our main focus is on Star Wars animation. And
I didn't know Alden hated the word recap. I wonder how many times I said that describing our celebration coverage.
No. I hate calling my own stuff recap review. Coverage though is coverage. That's what coverage is to me.
And then
we'll all be on the TNAP coverage. There's gonna be I think you said at the top, Jarod, but I'll be there calling in. Bombad, Skywalker.
I'm really hoping I get a call in from Moshe Isley. I'm really hoping that there is a
you will
wild this. I hope the stream gets taken down within 30 seconds because
there's an email that they sent to me. If I may be
I'm really hoping we get a call in from one Christina Ariel.
That would be
that's
nice.
all I hope.
So they sent you'll want to have your lightsabers handy when we split the pit in half. Get a big group photo with a light side versus dark side wall of death.
Wow.
Oh God, I want to be there so bad.
I don't know if I'm gonna bring a saber because that's a pain in the ass to travel with.
You'll get a saber at the convention.
The thing, and then I might just get another one like a moron. Get another thing I don't need.
What's your saber collection look like?
Oh, it's small. I have the Ben Solo Legacy. I have my Savis. I have a Luke Force Effects. It's in my closet in its box still. So just a few. The Ben Solo Legacy is my favorite. It's so weighty. It's got that nice sort of burnt sort of rose goldish at the top. The next one I want to get is probably either the Dark Saber or Rey Skywalker.
Nice. My goal is to have the whole Skywalker family one day.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Leia's too. Leia's is so nice.
Yeah, that's part of my the Leia one. But yeah, go check out Connor's other show. He and I are in a podcasting open relationship.
It's the best relationship.
Yes, podcast polyamory, if you will. You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at DarkJedi2552. And like we've alluded to several times here, live all 4 days of Star Wars Celebration, 2 streams, one during the convention and then one afterwards to give a more direct news roundup. I
may not be there too.
Yeah,
at the convention, because even if I could go to the convention, let me tell you, I would not feel up for it right now in the condition I'm in. I'll probably be here with Jarod on the stream, just freaking the fuck out about Star Wars Celebration,
bugging out for the news,
and Kenobi.
And Kenobi. Yeah, Friday's going to be a lot of Kenobi for the second live stream. So
Why did I hold up 2
Crazy.
5?
But yeah, also Nerd Academy, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, and on our website, www.nerdacademypodcast.com, where, if you're feeling generous, you can donate to our Patreon.
Give me a dollar.
Speaking of our patrons,
Third time. So much joy.
speaking of our patrons, thank you to our $10 alumnus, Nick Johnson, and to Paco, or as he is currently known on our Patreon. Use code TDAP at saveinfowars.com to get 5% off your order. That's saveinfowars.com. Use code TDAP to get 5% off your order.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Dreams
Ridiculous.
are windows into the lives of our multiversal selves.
Yeah.
Again, I can't. Fox gay. Close it. But yeah, guys, I'm super excited for Celebration Week. We're gonna be cranking out another episode of like the main show. The Attack of the Clones movie club comes out this week, and then content for this week. Main show episode where we're gonna catch up on all the news we've missed. Special Obi-Wan versus Darth Vader. KNR. Attack of the Clones movie club, and then we're off into Celebration. So I can't wait. This is going to be a journey. I'm so excited for my friends. Safe travels to everybody who will be going to Anaheim. I'm excited. I'm proud of all my homies. I can't wait to hear from you guys. I hope you guys spend Celebration with me if you won't be present. So yeah, with that, thank you, Alden. Thank you to everybody who's watching and listening. We're honored that you all have joined us, and may the force be with you always.
Stop! Move away from the cookie jar!
It's gonna be a big nut bust.